Welcome to part 15 and the final part of this Blender tutorial series where we're creating this biplane model, and this is the Boeing-Stearman Model 75. So in this final part, we are going to rig the airplane. We're going to do some basic rigging, like rigging the flaps and like the ailerons and the elevators, and we're also going to rig the landing gear, rig the propeller, and then we'll just do the final render. Now before we start this part, I want to let you know about an amazing Blender add-on for getting realistic lighting and sky background. Physical Starlight and Atmosphere is an amazing Blender add-on for creating realistic skies and sky lighting. I've used the add-on myself and I highly recommend it. You can customize the sun, atmosphere, stars, clouds, fog, and more. The add-on also provides some outstanding sky presets, such as daytime and sunset, fog and haze, Mars, and even retrowave. You can also change the time of day just by rotating the sunlight. Check out the add-on with the link in the description, and by purchasing the add-on through my link, you'll be helping to support this channel. So let's rig the ailerons first. So I'm going to go to the back here and I'm going to select this object, and what I need to do is go here to the modifiers, and we want to apply the mirror modifier so that we can separate it. So we'll click on the drop down, apply the mirror. Then if we go into edit mode, we will go to wireframe, and in vertex select, we're going to box select this side, and we'll separate it into its own object. And then we'll go back to object mode. So we have to have two objects. We're going to rename these. So this one is going to be left aileron, and this one is going to be right aileron. So now we want to rig these so that they can rotate. So let's select both of them and we'll go into local view. Then we'll just go into edit mode of this first one. And what we're going to do is go to the face select and select this face. We're going to use Shift S, and we're going to go to cursor to select it and let go. So the 3D cursor is right there. Now if we go object, set origin, origin to 3D cursor, the origin point has been set right there. So if we rotate it on the x-axis, it's going to rotate on that position. Let's select the next object. We'll go into edit mode. We'll select this face, and we'll do Shift S, cursor to selected. Then we'll go back to object mode and we'll go object, set origin, origin to 3D cursor, so we can rotate this on the x-axis, and it just rotates up and down. So let's now go out of local view. So now what I want to do is add one main object, which is going to control the entire airplane when you're moving it around or animating it. So what I'm going to do is hit Shift C to center the 3D cursor, and let's actually open up the side panel here, open up the outliner, and we're going to hide the lights and camera just to get that collection out of the way. Just hide it so we don't accidentally rig it. So what I'm going to do is go to the add menu now, and I'm going to add a cube. And in edit mode, I will scale the cube up. Let's go to top view, and I'll scale the cube up, maybe go to wireframe, and we're just going to scale the cube so it's just big enough so it fits the airplane. Now the wings are really large, so I'm going to have the wings go outside of the cube. That is fine. Let's also scale it down on side view, scale it down the z-axis like that. And now we're going to delete only faces. So just hit X and delete only faces. So now we have this wireframe. And make sure you press Ctrl A, and we're going to apply all transforms, so all the transforms of the cube are applied. So now what I want to do is go into wireframe, and we're going to box select all the objects, and then we're going to shift and select the cube last. We're now going to hit Ctrl P. We're going to set parent to object, keep transform. So now if I just select this object and move it around, all the other objects are going to follow along with it. So this is the main rig of the airplane. So let's rename this cube here in the outliner. So I'm going to rename this one to airplane controller, and then I can drag and drop it into the body collection. Now let's save our project again. So now I want to go into wireframe and select all the objects again, but we're not going to select the main controller. So just select all the other objects and then just shift select an object so that we have an active object. And what I want to do is lock all of these objects so that we can't move them. So I'll hit the N key to open up the side panel, and we're going to go here to item, and then you can see there are these locks here on the location, rotation, and scale. Now I'd have to do this manually for each object by clicking down here and locking all of them, but since we have them all selected, we can hold down the Alt key and then we can click and drag down, and we can lock all of these values. So now if you click on each one, you can see all the values are locked. So if I try to rotate, grab, or scale, it's not going to move the object. So that's just a nice rigging setup. We can still move this object, but then the other objects won't move. So this way we won't accidentally move the objects. However, I do want some of the objects to be able to rotate. So this object, I want to be able to rotate it on the x-axis. So on the rotation, we'll turn off X, and on this aileron, we'll turn off the X rotation, so turn off that lock. This way, if we try to rotate it, we can only rotate it on the x-axis. So now we can just kind of move those ailerons around during an animation. So we can have them going up or down. Let's go over here to this object, and we're going to do pretty much the same thing. So we'll go into edit mode, and you can see there is a mirror modifier. So let's go back to object node. We need to go down here to the mirror modifier and just apply the mirror modifier. Then we'll go into edit mode, we'll go to top view, we'll go to the vertex select, and we'll go to wireframe, and we're just going to select this half, and we'll separate it by selection. So now we can rename both of these objects. So this one here, this is going to be left elevator, and this one here, this is going to be right elevator. Now we have these little pieces here, and these pieces should follow the other piece. So let's also apply the mirror modifier, go into edit mode, box select this side, and we can separate it into its own object. And we'll go back to object mode. So now we can rename this. So this is going to be left elevator small, and this one here, this is going to be right elevator small. So now what I want to do is parent this to this piece, so that when we move the elevator, this piece is going to move with it. So we'll select the small piece, then we'll select the elevator last, and we'll hit Control P, and we're going to set parent to object keep transform. Now this object, it's locked, but let's just unlock the X rotation. So now if I rotate it on the X axis, the other object is moving with it. We'll do the same thing here. So select this first, shift select the other piece, Control P, we're going to set parent to object keep transform. So if we select the elevator and uncheck the rotation X, so unlock that. Now if I rotate this, that object is going to follow along with it. So we'll select both of these objects, and we're going to go into local view with the /. And now we will go into edit mode just of one of them, and we're going to go to the face select, and we're just going to select like these 4 big faces. We'll hit Shift S, cursor to selected. We'll go back to object mode, and then we can go object, set origin to 3D cursor. So if I rotate this, it's rotating correctly. We'll select the other object, go into edit mode and do the same thing. So we'll select these 4 faces, Shift S, move it down, cursor to selected, go back to object mode, and we'll go object, set origin to 3D cursor. And that's rotating correctly. So we'll hit / to go out of local view. And now this is animated, or this is rigged, so we can rotate that. And then this also is rigged. So now we have those different flaps, the ailerons and the elevators animated. So now we want to rig the rudder, and the rudder is going to move on the Z axis. So let's unlock the rotation Z so it can rotate like this. But we want it to rotate right here on this little point right there. So we'll go into local view, we'll go into edit mode, and we're going to select these 2 faces. Shift S, move our mouse down, cursor to selected. We'll go back to object mode, and we'll go object, set origin to 3D cursor. So now if I rotate this, it can only rotate on the Z axis. So we'll go out of local view, and now that is rigged, and that can just rotate. Now you can see that we have this piece here. This is the back tail. Now the tail light needs to be rigged to it. So if we select the light and then shift select the rudder, we'll hit Control P to object, keep transform. So now that's going to rotate with the tail. So now we want to do pretty much the same thing for the wheels. So we are going to separate the wheels into their own objects, and then we're going to make them so that they can only rotate on the correct axis. So let's just zoom into the object. We'll use the hubcap first. So for the hubcap, we are going to apply the mirror, and then we will hide this object. We'll select the next object and apply the mirror. Hide this object. We'll select the next object and apply the mirror modifier. Now this object has 2 mirror modifiers, so I'm just going to apply both of them. So apply both mirror modifiers. Okay, we'll hide that object, and let's select this hubcap and click on the drop down and apply the mirror modifier. All right, so we can hide that object. All right, and those are all the objects that we're going to rig, so I'll hit Alt-H to bring back the objects. So if we select the wheel, the inner hubcap, the outer hubcap, and also these bolts here or screws, we're going to just select all of those objects. So we'll go into edit mode, we'll go into wireframe, we'll go to the vertex select, and we'll deselect everything, and we're just going to box select them on this side, and we'll hit P, separate by selection. So now we have 4 new objects. So now we just need to rename all the objects. So let's navigate to the back here. And so this is the left side and this is the right side. So we'll rename all the objects. So this is going to be left front wheel. This one is going to be right front wheel. I'll hide those objects because I renamed them. Let's select this one. This is going to be left outer hubcap. Hide that object. This one is going to be right outer hubcap. Hide that object as well. Let's select this one. This one is going to be left hubcap screws. This one is going to be right hubcap screws. So I will hide that as well. Then we have this one here. This is going to be the left inner hubcap, hide that object. This one, F2 to rename it, is going to be right inner hubcap. So we'll hit Alt-H to unhide all the objects. So now what we want to do is select the 4 objects on this side, and we're going to lastly select the wheel. We'll hit Control-P, set parent to object, keep transform. So now if we just select the wheel, we want the wheel to rotate on the x-axis. So on the rotation x, we'll turn that off, and now I can just rotate this around, and you can see because we placed the origin point in the very center of that wheel, it's going to rotate perfectly. So let's do the same thing for this side. So we'll select the wheel, and we're going to unlock the rotation x value, so unlock that, so that wheel can rotate. Let's select all of these pieces here. So the screw, the hubcap, the inner hubcap, and then finally shift select the wheel, Control P, and we're going to set parent to object, keep transform. So now if I rotate the wheel, you can see it's rotating correctly. Now it's a little bit weird and fiddly when I'm trying to rotate this, and that's because the origin point is right over here. It's not right here in the center of the wheel. So what I'm going to do is go into edit mode, and I'm going to Alt select that loop there. Let's go to the other side and then Shift Alt select that loop there. So you can see both those loops are selected. So we'll go Shift S, cursor to selected, we'll go back to object mode, and then we'll go object, set origin, origin to 3D cursor. So now when I rotate this, it rotates a lot more easily because the rotation point is in the very center of the wheel. So there, the wheels are now rigged. So let's now rig the back wheel. So we'll go to the back wheel, let's zoom into it, and we're basically going to do the same thing, but it's going to be easier because it's just one wheel. So on the wheel here, let's uncheck or unlock the rotation X so that can rotate. And then you can see the hubcap is in the same object. If I go into edit mode, you can see the hubcap is in the same object, but I will select the screws and then shift select the wheel, Control P to object, keep transform. So when I rotate the wheel, the screws are also going to rotate. And that's it for the wheel. But we do need to also rotate this piece because I want it to rotate around in a circle. So let's go into edit mode, and I'm going to hold down the Alt key and just select that loop right there, vertices, and I'll hit Shift S, cursor to selected. We'll go back to object mode, and I'll go object, set origin, and we're going to do origin to 3D cursor. So now if I rotate this object, you can see it's locked, so I need to unlock it. So on the rotation Z, we'll unlock this, and now I can rotate it around on the Z axis, and you can see it's now going to rotate just like that. So as the plane is like taxiing or moving around, it can kind of rotate back and forth like this. So we'll select the wheel, and then we are going to shift select the pipe, and we'll do Control P, set parent to object, keep transform. So now this object can rotate, so it can like rotate this way, but then the wheel can also rotate together. So both of these objects can now rotate. So I'll press Control Z to bring it back to its position. So let's now rig the propeller. So I'm going to go to the front here and let's rig the propeller. So I'm going to select this object here and we'll go into edit mode, and I'm going to create kind of a little controller piece so that we can easily rotate the propeller. So I'm going to select this loop here and I'll duplicate it and scale it up. Now because this loop doesn't have any visible faces, you're not actually going to be able to see it in the render. So you don't need to worry about this showing up in the render. It's just going to be a wireframe that we can use when we are animating. So I want to rotate this on the y-axis. So let's uncheck the rotation y or unlock the rotation y so that piece can rotate just on the y. So now we want to select this piece here and then shift select the propeller blade, and then lastly shift select this piece, which is the controller. I'll hit Control P to object, keep transform. So now if I rotate this object, let's rotate it, and now you can see we can just animate that propeller. So we'll save the project again, let's close the side panel, and now the rigging is completely finished. So just to make sure this is working properly, we can rotate this piece, then we can like rotate this and animate this. We can also rotate the ailerons here, and we can also rotate the rudders and the elevators. And then if you want to bring the rig back to its default position, you can hit Alt-R to clear the rotations, Alt-G to clear the locations, and Alt-S to clear the scale. So the airplane is now completely finished. So I'm just going to render a very basic render. You can of course add an environment, you could do an animation, you could have some renders of it flying in the sky or have it maybe in like a hangar or something. But doing all of that is going to make the tutorial quite a bit longer, and it's already like my longest tutorial series I've ever created. So I'm just going to create a very basic environment and then we'll just give this a render. So let's add a plane We'll scale the plane up really big. Let's just make it really, really big. And then let's go to front view, and I'm going to bring the plane down on the Z-axis so that the plane has something to rest on. Let's go to side view, and I'm going to select the controller piece, and we can just rotate the controller piece. Let's go into wireframe, and I'm just going to bring that down, and I can't see where the ground is, so there's the ground. So let's just select everything and move everything up so that the ground is going to rest on that little axis line. So now if I select this object, I can rotate it, kind of bring it down there, and just have the plane kind of sitting there on the ground. So we'll select the ground object. Let's go to the materials. Let's add a new material, and I could just call this material ground. And for the base color, I'm just going to make it like a gray color. So let's go into the rendered view to see how this is looking. We can also move this object. Let's first rename the object to ground. So I'm going to call it ground here in the outliner, and then I'm going to put it in the lights and camera collection. So let's unhide the lights and camera collection, and we can go into the camera view, and we'll select the camera, and we'll move the camera up here. Now I do also want to change the lighting because there is a different HDRI I kind of like a little bit better. So let's open up the side panel, go to the world properties, and let's click on this little file icon to add a new HDRI. And I'm going to be adding in this AutoShop01 HDRI from polyhaven.com. Link is in the video description if you want to download it. And I just downloaded the 1K HDR version, so we'll just open up this texture. And I like the lighting of this a little bit better. Now you can see the background is like super reflective. So if we go over here to the materials, let's open up the specular, and I'll turn the specular all the way down to a very small number, maybe just like a 0.2 or something, or a 0.1. So it's not going to have as much reflections. Maybe even turn it way down to like a 0.04 or something like that. And let's also turn the roughness value way up so it's a lot more rough. So maybe turn the roughness to 1 and the IOR to a 0.1 there on the specular. Now I'm just going to add a few area lights. So let's go to the add menu. We'll go to light and add an area light. And let's scale the area light up, kind of rotate it over. And then let's turn the power up to maybe just like 500. Maybe even like 1,000, probably 1,000 is going to be a bit better. And on the light settings, let's change it from square to rectangle. And then I can drag the size here, drag the X and Y size, and maybe rotate it over a little bit, kind of stick one light over there. Let's go to top view. Maybe have one light over here. Let's duplicate it and put another light maybe over here. Duplicate it again and maybe put another light over here. So we have maybe like some rim lights on the back and then kind of a main light and another light here on the side. Let's maybe rotate this so it's pointing a little bit more down. So let's rotate it on the Y-axis, scale it up a little bit, and just kind of play around with the lighting and get some nice lighting to render the scene. And I think the front could use a little bit more light because it's a little bit dark. So we'll just duplicate one of these lights. We'll go to top view, rotate it over, and just make another light, maybe right over here to light up the landing gear so you can see a little bit more details. You definitely don't want to blow it out and add too many lights, because if you just add a bunch of lights all around, there aren't going to be too many shadows, and shadows are just important as lights. So as well as having brighter parts, to actually see the shape and the depth of the model, you also need shadows and darker areas. I'm just kind of playing around with the lights here. Don't add too many lights, but I kind of like a rim light there. Maybe bring the rim light down, maybe bring this light forward a little bit. You can also select the light and then hit H to hide the light and Alt H to unhide it. So sometimes I like to do that. H, Alt H, H, Alt H, just to kind of see what it looks like with and without the light. Because if the light isn't really adding anything to the scene, then it's not really worth having in the scene. But that definitely makes things a bit brighter, so it's easier to see the final render. So you can definitely play around with this and create some really nice renders. You can create like some sky renders. You could put it in an environment. You could have it in like a field, maybe on a landing strip, whatever you want to do. But I'm just going to give this a final render now. So let's go to the output settings. I'm going to use a resolution of 2560 by 1440. That is a 2K image. Let's go up here to the render settings and I'll open up the sampling, and I'm going to make this like 300 samples. You probably don't need that many, but I just want to have it nice and crisp, and I'll turn on the denoise. Now before I give this a final render, there's just one more small thing that I noticed that I wanted to change. So it's kind of hard to see here because of the viewport denoising, but I think the bump is a little bit too strong. So let's go to the shading workspace and let's zoom into the object, and if we preview this bump, you can kind of see there it is. It's pretty subtle already, but I'm going to turn it down to maybe like half of this. So 0.015, and let's now preview the principled shader again. Let's zoom way in. I just thought that the bump there was a little bit too strong, so I wanted to make it more subtle. So we'll save the project again, and then we will hit F12 to render. And there is the final image, so then you can save this image by clicking on Image and Save As. And I'll just save this as final render in my project files and just save that image. So currently, as I'm finishing up this tutorial series, this will be the largest tutorial series I've ever made on my YouTube channel. So thank you so much for watching the entire tutorial series, and if you made it through the entire tutorial series, leave an airplane emoji in the comments. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial series, I hope you learned a lot, and thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoy my tutorials and you'd like to help support me and this channel, a great way to do that is by checking out my Gumroad store and my Patreon page. So on my Patreon page, you can join one of my memberships, and you'll be helping to support the channel each month, and you'll also get access to lots of Blender content like 3D models and assets, tutorial files, artwork project files, procedural materials, geometry node modifier setups, and lots more Blender content and resources. Or if you'd just like to make a one-time purchase of one of my products, you can check out my Gumroad store where I have all the same content as a one-time purchase. And I really do appreciate all of your support, and all of your support really helps me to keep on making these free tutorials. You can also purchase the finished tutorial project files if you're interested, so again, link to that is in the description. So that'll be it for this tutorial series, so thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in a future tutorial.